juggling? I mean, making sure that the format is correct.
I would say there's carrier business development cycles. Carriers don't put applications on their network very quickly. They want to make sure that it's not going to bring down the network. And the other piece would be development per the handset. You have to do application development for every single handset you want to support, whether it's WAP or thick client application development.
All right. Anyone else?
Right.
Okay. Let me move on. Which company or category do you think is the key driver in this space? The carriers, the online networks?
Okay, I'll jump in.
All right, go right ahead.
I think that carriers in many ways are still the gatekeepers. It is their network. I think we begin to see those walls coming down. But, you know, in many cases, if you want your content available through a handset, right now in the U.S. market, it's primarily through a carrier, particularly when it comes to video-based content.
Is there any particular carrier that kind of gets it?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say there are a couple of carriers that really, and we'll include MVNOs because Michael's here. There are a couple that really do get it, and they get it from different perspectives. There are some who perceive themselves to be content companies, and some who say that they are phone companies who are carrying content. And you know, it really depends on which one you're working with. But some of them have really gotten really good at analyzing content, finding ways to promote it on the deck to help you gain and traction, and I have to say it's gotten a lot easier in the last year.
You know, Paul might have a different experience, but the consumers, we've tried a lot of stuff with the web and with WAP advertising, and it's, all the consumer awareness is coming from the carrier's deck. U.S. consumers don't know what short codes are, you know, they don't know how to get applications, and it's just been, you know, as much as we've tried off-deck stuff, we always come back to 90% of this is driven on deck.
Right. And do you think that, my question would be do you think websites, Space obviously has their web presence. Is it important for the made-for-mobile networking applications to also have a heavy web presence, or do you think it, you know, just being pretty much tied to just the mobile is with the carriers on deck is?
From my opinion, yeah. I mean, I think mobile consumers are different. I mean, I think currently, I think over time you'll see a mainstreaming of the audience, so more and more web consumers will understand how it relates to mobile. But my partner launched Match.com Mobile in 2001. Standalone product, and they launched a big website because no consumer would ever enter their profile on a handset. In reality, less than 10% of the consumers ever went to the website. So actually, mobile consumers will do it on the handset currently.
I think it also depends if you're asking inside of the U.S. or outside of the U.S. I think there's a inside the U.S. you've got to be much more web friendly and carrier centric. Outside of the U.S., you're getting a lot of your traffic through mobile search engines. So paying attention to search optimization.
Yeah, a good example of that is SK Telecom, which is the parent company for Helio, where they launched SciWorld, and they have over, I think, 70 million members. That's all online. It's kind of the first online mobile social community that really came into existence, which is why we put it as a MVNO/carrier. Helio put MySpace and the phenomenon of social mobile networking at the forefront of our offering and focusing on being almost like an aggregator of different communities, a place where different members within a unique community could come and interact with other members of different communities. So really having that as a focal point, it means you have to have it first and foremost, you know, on your deck. It means you have to give a full end-to-end experience that's, you know, different than different but also enhanced than it is online, if there is an online community you're harvesting, as well as be something that, you know, people will continue to use when they're outside, you know, and untethered, which is really where we're trying to drive the marketplace. So almost create almost a new social behavior where it's more about, hey, what did you do, you know, less about what did you do last night and more about what are you doing right now, because it's the one thing that you're carrying with you, you know, 24/7. So it's really incumbent on the carrier to push that agenda as the keeper, and in order to do that, you can, you know, have client apps and not just WAP. I mean, obviously WAP has been the traditional forum, but and SMS and other messaging vehicles to get people to communicate with each other in ways that they're not accustomed to or hadn't been accustomed to before within mobile.
You know, the ability to focus your content on multiple channels certainly is important, but I'm going to agree that the experience that we had at Vodafone is almost 95% users of the application are wireless only. We do both the Vodafone France and UK and Italy sites as well, and the wireless user is a different breed. They will do it on their own.
Okay, I'd like to drive down what you brought up there about the difference in behavior from online to offline. Obviously, it's more present, not what I did last night, what I'm doing now. Are there other behaviors, anybody can jump in on this, other behaviors that you're seeing early days here for mobile networking?
Well, I'd say, I'll give one application or one example where photo, for example, if you're out and about and everyone now has some sort of camera or mobile camcorder within their device on Helio, that's a standard item. You can start to upload those photos or videos from where you are and either send those via an MMS, which is, or you can, with social networking, you can post it right to your social network. So if it's MySpace as the example for Helio, you can post that and then instantaneously share that with all your friends in your community, versus waiting to get back to the PC, upload
syncing.
photos and syncing, and so it's more of immediacy. Hey, check out this party. Look who's here. Here's a short some videos or some clips of photos from it. So that's where the youth especially is moving towards, where it's they've all grown up on a wired online environment. They're used to the web. This is just kind of the next natural extension of that for them.
Yeah, I would add that we work with LiveJournal and Zanga and some other of the blogging sites, youth blogging sites, and blogging online is a long form experience, and I would say long form, a couple hundred words is long form. The mobile experience is bursty. It's very short, it's very quick. A site like Twitter, which launched ago, has seen rapid growth quickly, and it's all very brief stuff. It's very messaging focused, and we see that with our application as well. For every post, you get about 10 to 20 messages per consumer within an application, so it's very messaging focused as well.
Yeah, and I'd say like in the UGC category, we're even seeing now, 3-megapixel cameras coming out on handsets, and carriers asking for mobile ingress solutions so that instead of having to create content online and then port it to different platforms, people can now create content, video-based content on the handset that's native to it and upload it right from there. So as the quality gets better, we're really seeing convergence for the first time, where you can do bi-directional content creation, bi-directional sharing, and monetization as well.
I would add, in terms of user behavior, it seems there's still a lot of novelty factor on the mobile that wouldn't be tolerated on the web, and in many cases it's users who have the phone as to network to access the network, and they'd never had the computer before. So you've got things like seeing other people who are also visiting this site, which on the web would be kind of a nuisance thing down in the corner, is a really exciting phenomena on this mobile device. So you're able to serve and take advantage of that that kind of new frame of mind of the user.
Yeah. Aspect of the experience is something
Yes.
that a lot of people are really starting to pick up on.
Yeah, and blogging is another one. We just had launched Metro Blogging and Dig.com and Craigslist and Wikipedia. So those online little communities.
Delicious is another one.
Those
yeah.
are where people are doing more and more of that, I think, online, or will continue to do more of that on mobile going forward.
Can you describe any barriers to some of that? I can think of one from a point, some of the speeds that you're used to online, you don't get on a mobile unless you have EVDO or HSDP, not to go down the technology road too far, but can you describe what you're hearing from
Yeah, you're
customers?
right. I'm speaking as if 3G is the baseline, but
Right,
it's
I
a
re-
fair point. We shouldn't make that assumption.
I think that's true.
So 3G obviously is an essential, baseline of speed that you need to have a decent experience. Otherwise, it can be abysmal if you're on 2G. And there's still obviously large carriers out there that don't have 3G. Now that we have 3G, it's analogous to back in the internet days when we were all doing dial-up. Remember how painful it was, and no one ever surfed the web. And now that we have 3G and EVDO, it's a wonderful experience. It's really fast, and in some cases, if you're in a good coverage, it can be faster than your cable modem at home if a lot of people are on at the same time. So it's Come a long way, but we're very much at the beginning phases of this, for sure.
Okay, great.
There was
A
some
question in the back. Yeah, go right ahead.
Do you guys have any segmentation studies on your audiences? And do you know how many people, like, do you know that if they have like 8% of them have home PCs, 20% of them have home PCs? Do you have any ideas about whether you guys are addressing new services to people who may not even be online?
We have some anecdotal information.
question.
You know, specifically, I think we originally envisioned our product as sort of a emo kid, sort of 13 to 25-year-old, slightly female skewed product. It turned out to be about 50% urban, about 25% emo kid, and about 25% weirdo outside the demographic, like truckers or people who use chat products a lot. We launched in Verizon Puerto Rico about 6 months ago because of an opportunistic business development acquisition by Telcel, and realized we had all of a sudden massive uptake in Puerto Rico, specifically because there was a lack of PC penetration. And from a customer service perspective, we had limited our ability to message our consumers to an SMS size. And anecdotally, we have a lot of consumers who we've asked for email addresses who don't have them. So we see a higher lack of PC penetration than we had expected originally.
And again, to the outside, the North American market, one of Vignette's customers, South African Broadcasting, is seeing very much of the same thing. They're distributing news and reporting over wireless to people that just don't have electricity in their homes. I mean, so there's a huge variety of people who are accessing this stuff, and it's going to be really, really market-centric.
Okay. Any other audience questions? We can take some at the end. Go ahead.
Well, you've been talking about the barriers to doing many of these things, and I was just wondering, because of some of the barriers of the networks or whatever, have you created any or come up with any learnings about how to sample some of the content? Have you thought about any other ways to do that and to provide a user experience? Maybe start somewhere other than a premium service?
Good question. Did everyone hear that in the back? Yes, no? No. Okay, the question was, have you got any way for end users to sample some of this social networking on a mobile phone, correct? Did that characterize your question? Okay, go ahead. Who wants to take that?
I think it's challenging right now to do that because it costs a certain amount of money for a carrier to send that clip out on a network. So, while it sounds like a great idea to encourage free sampling, the truth of it is that until we have free ad-supported mobile video, which is, everyone's talking about advertising solutions right now, there's still going to be some sort of a freight charge to get that clip to the handset. So whether it's 99 cents, for 2 to 3 clips of user-generated content through an aggregator in Europe, or it's $3 a day on the Verizon Wireless deck, or $20 a month on I think from our perspective, those decisions are a little bit beyond our control right now. Rever does offer free viewing online. We power a broadcast channel in the UK. We do, because of our relationship in the mobile space and the business models in mobile, we do ask consumers to pay. We have to ask consumers to pay on the handset. The challenge for us on that has been that we've had to apply a very strong programming filter as we program channel on the VCast deck because we are asking someone to pay. So we've made sure that every single clip that goes up there versus maybe spending an hour surfing a site online to go through clips and find some you like and clearly find some that you don't, we've set a pretty high benchmark that if there's a piece of content in the laughs category, it has to fulfill on the mandate that it's funny. Unfortunately, I wish we could encourage free sampling. Don't control that gateway right now.
Well, actually, I did want to add, and we're experimenting with a new software with our application that does allow viral capability for clips. And what we're working on is sending out individual clips that are very popular, that are completely cleared through our channel, and sending them out into the mobile community. And just like it does with online through emails or whatever, you can forward these clips, and they would be ad supported. The only way to monetize them, which is, she said, necessary for the carriers and for the application developers. So
and for the content partners too.
And the content partners and the content creators as well.
Yep.
So we'll see how it goes. It's very new. It's something we're just starting, but again, it's a possibility of a way that viewers can create it. There is the branding attached to it so that they know they can actually buy the channel later on particular carriers. But it would have to have some kind of brand advertisement attached to it.
And
So,
one thing to think about the carrier business model, I mean, they, just this last couple months, they bought a whole bunch of spectrum for billions of dollars, and companies like Google or Yahoo could go buy spectrum if they want to, and they could put up base stations and towers and provide free advertising-supported services, but they don't. So it's, unlike cable, which was a specific monopoly into an area where you had to pay for a lane of cable, there is some sort of sense of a business model time period where a carrier, you can do what you want as long as it maps to a carrier's business model. So if that's MMS picture messaging, WAP data traffic or whatever, that is going to be the reality for the next several years. And a lot of the online companies don't get that. You can't just do it free. I mean, you'll be IP blocked. Just recently, a carrier blocked a port where all the video services were coming over because there was too much capacity going through there. If there's no business model in place, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to let you upload video through a socket-based connection on Java app. It's not going to happen.
One way we, as the MVNO, I guess the only carrier up here, is we do subscription-based models. So our plans, our memberships for Helio are all in, typically, which means you get a fair amount of video that's included within that. The other thing we do is we just launched a TV set, which is a premium pack. So it's a bundle concept where you include in there various forms of content. So again, it also depends, this assumes you're streaming, right? So you're streaming this content. If you're downloading, if the example you're asking is more, say, like a song example, right? Where I want to sample the song before I buy it and own it, then it's a little different. Typically, at a carrier, like for example, we have a music service, you get a 30-second sample of the music clip before you buy. So we are actually we're spending money in hopes that you buy it, right? So again, it depends on, as well as what type of content you're
I think
looking to launch.
also you've got kind of in the general network concept, you've got user-generated content and you've got social networking. User-generated is the YouTube, social networking is the MySpace. The bandwidth required for social networking is often a lot less. So for what we do, we're actually working with a lot of publishers off deck, and as a user, you can go to their site and socialize with other people on that site for free. There is no cost, but that's because there are ad support mechanisms behind it. But I think in terms of figuring out the free sample, it's good to differentiate those two categories.
Yeah, and one last point. Again, the U.S. market is so carrier dominant and a little bit different than the rest of the world on mobile. So there are some, 2 or 3 fairly large European aggregators who have portals themselves, and off-deck is a very popular way to buy content, where they do actively encourage sampling. So you could, get 2 pieces free that you like, and then hopefully sort of upsell the consumer on that opportunity.
The other thing we do in a gaming example is we rent the game for a week. You can buy it after 7 days for $6, $5.99, or you can rent it for a week for 99 cents.
That's cool.
It's a little different method.
Yeah, question in the back?
Elizabeth, you mentioned that certain carriers consider themselves content companies, where other ones consider them carriers who carry content. In your experience, who are specifically?
No, I'm already in trouble for saying the first part of it. I come from content, so it warms the cockles of my heart when someone at a carrier says, "We're not a content company, we're a pipeline." I'm like, "Oh, thank you." I don't think I could dare answer that. I think Helio and Amped are great examples of MVNOs that target the youth market, that clearly understand how important content is. And I always refer to content as video-based content because that's just kind of my world. And I think I'm going to leave it at that.
That's probably wise.
Well done.
Yeah, media flow. I mean, pretty much every carrier is launching a video initiative today. I mean, you've got Qualcomm hiring every TV executive they can get to move to San Diego right now. I mean, it's, they...
Yeah, but you have to live in San Diego.
It's a great place. I think everybody's afraid of being a dumb pipe. I mean, you don't want to be a dumb pipe, so what do? How do you increase your ARPU and things like that? And so I think they increasingly will feel that content's important now, and I think it seems like some of the MVNOs are going to become like full-on content companies at some point.
And my guess is we're going to see it break out kind of like cable. If we look, 3 to 5 years down the road, maybe media flow becomes, your linear television subscription-based service, and then maybe what we're seeing right now is some of the MVOD channels become free mobile supported channels. I just think there's so many questions, and I think, again, advertising is kind of the holy grail right now. But, I know how I feel when I get from CTIA a spam phone call,
pretty impressive.
a telemarketing
pretty
call on my cell phone. I'm like, okay, how did you get that number? So on the one hand, this is the ultimate way to message to someone. And a carrier knows an awful lot about you just from geo-targeting based on your area code. But you want to be really careful that advertising is done tastefully and relatively unobtrusively on a handset so consumers don't get upset.
Yeah, we're going to be really, really interested in seeing how the interstitials work for the video content. That's something that we're keeping a really close eye on.
Yeah, I'll get your question just a second. I'd like to go there just for a second. It seems like there's a consensus, and I agree too, that I think advertising is sort of the holy grail here. But are there other business models or other ways to monetize these social sites? We've talked about some of them. Are there ones we haven't talked about?
Yeah, there's
go ahead.
some obvious ones, I think.
Okay.
One of the things we think is that, when you look at a carrier's deck, they've improved a lot in the search capabilities, but if you're into hardcore bands or, screamo or things like that, we think that social communities allow you to merchandise content. So not only would you have maybe a subscription model, maybe you have sub-premium messaging models where I see this cute girl I like, I want to message her, it's like 10 to 15 cents, which is kind of like the Lava Life model, or the ability to sample a track from a band like Brand New that I've never heard of before, go ahead and buy the content. So I think we've pitched the carriers we've worked with multiple models. So we've integrated with several advertising companies. We run advertising on WAP. We do subscription either monthly or day pass. We're moving to content sales. I think you have to look at a variety of things. It's not going to just be one, because if you add up all the mobile advertising inventory in the world, it's a small number today.
Yeah.
And from a CPM perspective, that's not a whole lot of cash to pay these bills.
Right. Anybody, go ahead.
Something that we do, we work with a lot of mobile publishers that are either generating revenue through advertising or selling ringtones, wallpaper, and other mobile products. So our focus with the social networking is actually to drive product discovery through those social networks. We're kind of trying to wrap around the primary content as opposed to be a separate and isolated community. The reason to do that is people will come to a site and click around 10, 12 times to see what kind of ringtones or what's in the catalog. But when you put up profiles of other people, especially that are online now, they will click until their thumb, is red. And if, when looking at those profiles, you can see the other products that those other people have purchased or looked at recently, you're driving a lot of product discovery, which is driving a lot of revenue by alternative methods. And that's, I think, a big way that social networking, as part of a feature of other sites, will play an important role in revenue generation.
As the sophistication of the ability to do tagging and things like content focusing, so when you get a community that is deciding which ringtones are cool, which kind of on the side content is cool, I think that you're going to be increasing kind of the viability of that content for purchase. You're going to be up-leveling its profile a little bit.
Well, and I think be adding more downloaded content like video downloads, ringtones, and again, the social networking sites can drive traffic to those other sites. And also another thing, and this is kind of geared more toward video, but we're incorporating virtual product placement within our videos that people pass around, so it's really unobtrusive. Because again, like they said, you have to be so careful on mobile with advertising, unless it's completely free, which actually there has been surveys that show a lot of especially younger viewers willing to tolerate some advertising to have a free channel as opposed to a paid monthly subscription. So obviously, but the carriers want to be very careful again, because
Free
you
cost,
can
yeah.
get the customer's information, and you have to be careful with advertisers with that.
So on the video front, we work with carriers on a licensing fee basis, and we allocate half of the licensing fee back to content creators on a prorated share. So the more successful your video is on the VCAST deck, the more of the licensing fee you earn. There are other places in Europe where we're testing MMS trials with advertising for, again, viral pass-along, and there are different revenue models and different revenue shares based on B2B or B2C distribution.
Okay, I want to come back to the gentleman back here that had a question.
You guys were talking about it.
addressing, but do you see an additional level of importance for P2P in terms of distribution and payment?
IMS. Yeah, I mean, carriers are right now trying to figure out how to deploy a layer of technology that would allow people to share content with other people as long as they get paid. So I know some carriers are trialing that right now.
And the OMA 2.0 standard, I don't know if you're familiar with it at all, is going to super distribution, which is the kind of the catch-all for this. I get something, I can pass it along to my friend for some reduced amount of money.
Okay. There's a question back here.
Yeah, when it comes to mobile video, are there means to narrative embracing sideloading the content and modifying it and it seems pretty big? Or is this only going to be over the air consumption?
I would say there are handset manufacturers in particular who are very excited about the concept of side loading because this all of a sudden, Nokia, this all of a sudden is the platform. And in fact, Nokia had an announcement this week sort of to that effect. I mean, I think it's very exciting if you're a handset manufacturer right now. Again, a lot of shifting relationships because typically certain handset manufacturers have worked with certain carriers very closely. And now all of a sudden they are, this is the equivalent of ABC when you put video there and they can control the ad inventory. So I think there's a lot of jockeying going on, but yes, sideloading has definitely become a hot topic, and I think the top 4 handset manufacturers are all looking at it very closely.
That brings up a quick question for me, though. Do you think Nokia can supersede the carriers in trying to control advertising?
I love Nokia.
I'm not knocking Nokia. I'm just saying. I mean,
there's a reason they don't have so many handsets in North America.
Yeah.
I mean, they have 50 million handsets in the market. I mean, when you start looking at those numbers versus TV households, I get goosebumps. Can they do it? Yeah, I think, can they sell the inventory? I think they face the same challenges that every single person in this space faces.
Right, that's
There's
what I'm
no
saying.
such thing as a global ad buy. There's no such thing as a pan-European ad buy. I don't see why they couldn't do it. They've got offices in every country. They're one of the major advertisers, so they've got agency relationships.
Sure.
They're about as well positioned. Thought about it. They're about as well. They're about as well positioned as I think anybody is to take a stab at this on sort of that macro level. That's kind of really exciting. And I just say kudos to them for even trying, whether it works or not. Somebody had to sort of plant the flag, and I think it's appropriate, and I applaud that the #1 handset manufacturer in the world did it.
And think about how NBC would feel if they could get everyone in the world to buy a GE television set to watch NBC content. I mean, that clearly that's not the place today, but I mean, Nokia is really, really sweeping it.
A question in the back here.
Do you all have any other customer acquisition channels besides the carrier deck that you focus on? Are there any other cost-effective means to do this? Have you talk. I know you guys spoke briefly about lap ads. Have you used those to acquire customers? Or
We've tried a little bit of that. I mean, we're doing a promotion next month with Singular where we're doing a free trial for a month of our application, and we're paying for that, and so we think it's a worthwhile experiment. We've done 2 campaigns with Fanscape around specific artists. We've given phones to 40 bands. So about 7 months ago, we gave phones to every member of Newfound Glory so they can post when they're on the road, and then they can actually syndicate that content out to their website. So those are the types of things for us from an anecdotal perspective we find interesting. We were stoked that Newfound Glory was named the headliners of the Warped Tour. But I think you have to try different things. I think just from a pure conversion basis, and Paul probably has a little bit different experience internationally, it's just you can drive a lot of traffic anywhere, but the conversion just isn't there in the US so far. So for us, it's affinity. WAP website, I mean, using like JavaScript, put your phone number in here, I'll send you a free trial. You'll get people to look at it, but they don't convert so far. Yeah, for J2ME and Brew, you can't do that yet. They're just about to roll out the M-Shop stuff, so you can start to do more of that.
I would totally agree that people want things for free, and so the conversion rate is pretty difficult even in North America, and especially outside of North America. As far as driving traffic, the 2 most effective means that we've found are AdMob, a company up in the Bay Area where it's a pay-per-click. It's amazing. You go on, you fill out an ad, you turn it on, and you better monitor quickly or else you'll be out of $1,000 in 5 minutes.
All from South Africa.
There's nothing wrong with South Africa.
You can filter it pretty specifically, yeah, but you
I still
want to
get
pay
South
attention
Africa.
to the filter. And then mobile search engine optimization does matter. A lot of traffic comes in through Google and Yahoo. This is mostly off-deck, or pretty much just, if you're an off-deck publisher, making your site welcoming to Google and Yahoo search engines, and even developing it turns out that search engines love community-generated content, which is great for us. So add every kind of piece you can to make it as attractive as possible to Google and Yahoo and the other mobile search spiders.
Yeah, one other thing, I mean, we do a lot of viral stuff within the application where I can actually forward Michael, get his phone number, stick it in here, and send a link to him, and maybe he can download the Java application. And there's, even today, from a viral perspective in mobile, there's just still so many steps you have to take. And so trying to find ways to reduce those steps, I mean, it's typical internet. Every step you lose 80%. So I think that the pieces there, the use of shortcodes, the ability to intelligently detect the browser, the handset, the carrier network, whether you're using SMPP or SMTP, those sorts of things, you just have to build up a lot of stuff to do that. It's very difficult. You don't just wake up with 3 people and make a Java app and do that. You have to really put a lot of time and effort behind that.
And to that point, expensive. I mean, having a device database that has 3,500 devices in it, I mean, that is the job of a professional transcoder or device recognition company. That's something guy at a garage is going to do.
Yeah, we support 120 handsets today. We're doing Symbian, Flash, Windows Mobile, Java, Brew, Sidekick, WAP. I mean, and even WAP, you have to change by the handset to do different types of CSS. It isn't just write once in WAP and it's all good. It doesn't work that way.
Question here. I'll come back to you.
I think we're all self-sequestering ourselves here for the next 24 hours, and so over the past 2.5 days, or over the past 2.5 days, we'll be in this rich Wi-Fi environment. Great environment to do side loading, great environment to make web calls. So my question to you guys is, what do you think the impact of Wi-Fi will be on the content business in the mobile world?
Who wants to take Wi-Fi?
I have a Milo and a PSP in my bag. I
Well,
love Skype.
No, I think it can make a big difference. I mean, for us, we're a mobile short content and webisode channel, and we like for created content, so we want people to upload and submit their content for us. And a lot of them, obviously, we don't want mobile quality content. We want a little bit higher end. So for us, for people to upload and be able to upload it to a possible social network on our channel or directly to our channel and have people vote on it, it would be a great aspect. So I think there's definitely many ways to tie them both together.
I guess I would say I'm all for it, except sort of the core philosophy of Rever is really sort of create, share, and get paid for doing it, to make sure that people who are creating content, and I speak specifically about people outside the 30-mile zone that you are now sequestered in, that they finally have a chance to monetize their work. So while giving it away for free and encouraging sampling is a wonderful thing for anyone who wants their content recognized, we really want to protect their right to monetize it. So, like on the one hand, I think, oh, cool, and on the other hand, I'm like, well, how's a content partner monetized or rewarded for that? And again, I think that's the advertising piece. We're waiting to see click in. Is there anyone here from an ad agency, by the way? Are you producing a lot of 5-second post-roll ads yet? That's one of the problems we're finding.
But to your point on the Wi-Fi piece, I mean, this phone is an $800 smartphone. It has Wi-Fi. It's my first Wi-Fi phone. And it's, when you start looking at the market penetration of Wi-Fi devices or 4G devices, WiMAX and things like that, and the cost, that's an $800 phone, unsubsidized. So even subsidized, something like the iPhone, $400 or $500, I mean, that's a mean consumer price point. And the types of applications, social networking, 13 to 25-year-old kids, you're talking free Verizon phones, free singular phones, not DO phones, it's XRTT, the crappiest of phones. And so that's where the opportunity, I think, is to have sort of growth and adoption of products in the near term. I think longer term it does, and look at what she's saying, that now you're back into the Napster world in sort of open content pieces.
Yeah, technologically, we're just not there. I think once WiMAX is available, we can talk about the contribution of content and the submission of content from these devices. But the cost has got to come down, and the speeds have got to go up.
All right, question back here.
My question was just asked.
Oh, okay. Other questions? No? All right. I've got one can you, I think someone hit on this just briefly, but can you talk a little bit about LBS and this whole mobile social networking?
Yes. Well, I think for us, for Helio, we see it as a tremendous opportunity. There's location-based services for those of you who don't know. There obviously can take many forms. We launched an application called Buddy Beacon, which is a viral friend finder app that it's opt-in and allows you to see where your friends are at. So the use case is it's a Friday night, you want to know which party to go to, you pull up your Buddy Beacon and you see where the majority of your buddies are, and that's where you should be. There's obviously some sensitivity areas around that when you start talking with social networking. So obviously a closed opt-in is a way to go within social networking that we see. There's also just a number of location-based services, obviously, that are I'd say non-social network, more, excuse me, search-based. So, hey, I'm out and about and I want to find a pizza place or a Starbucks that's near me. A good analogy, we have GPS-enabled Google Maps, which we're the first to launch, and still I think the only carrier that has it. So it's not about putting a zip code in. It's you pull it up, you push you launch the application with a blue blinking dot. It shows you where you are, and then from there you can do search to look up Starbucks or the Coffee Bean, or you can look for directions. You can look at traffic. And so those kind of location-based services, obviously, that's optimal for a mobile device, and I think we're going to start to see a lot more of that, above and beyond just within the social networking context.
To me, the LBS is exciting. We originally focused on that as part of one of the core things we wanted to do, but you have privacy issues, you have cost issues, and you have network load issues. And so the LBS infrastructure that's been deployed with most carriers is set up for fleet management, where I have a truck that has $100,000 and I don't mind paying $25 a month to know where my driver is every 10 minutes. When you start talking about 100,000 kids, your price point for applications like this are going to be $10 a month. And so far, the only successful broad consumer LBS application I've seen has been the Friend Finder applications on Sprint. I think Disney has it as well, where a parent's willing to pay that much. And when you start talking about hundreds of thousands of kids both doing user plane and control plane polling against a network, I think the carriers are going to choke really hard on that one.
The best phrase that I've heard describe as LBS is that it's a $0 billion industry. And I think that's true. I think it will be huge. I think when folks start to aggregate location in the way that they've aggregated text message and make it much easier as an application developer to integrate location just as an XML call, then you'll start to see it trickle out. But the cost issues understandably driven by the carriers at this I think prohibit it from becoming commonplace.
All right, a question in the back again?
Follow up on the thought. The idea of couponing, couponing on your cell phone.
Yeah.
Ties in with LBS, doesn't it? And I hear people are a viable business model with coupons.
You need inventory, right? So Cellfire has a really great product, but it's Boston Markets. And so who in here has ate at Boston Markets this week? Okay. So, I mean, you need inventory. You need critical mass. It's the same advertising you have. At mp3.com in 2001, we did 80 million in advertising off of, hundreds of millions of impressions. You just don't have the scope yet. I mean, it's going to happen, and I think it's a great application. I think this morning I went running, and I used a Bones in Motion LBS product to actually track how far I was running, how fast, and how much I was sucking wind. And that was cool. It was neat. That was a good use case of it. But again, it's $10 a month, and I think most people aren't going to dig deep for that. I'm a geek.
I think also when you get into location, you need to consider the solution that is relevant. If you're talking about a Starbucks coupon, you can be kind of anywhere and within 10 feet from a Starbucks. And I think for 90% of the applications, location on a zip code area is going to be sufficient. It's I think actually just 10% of the applications where I need to know my exact Latin long in order to get the value out of the application.
And we're seeing a 70 plus percentage take rate in a lot of our web applications and location-based apps. So clearly there's a need for it. I think it's important that you have a model set up, and our all-in memberships encourage that to kind of get around the monetization issues. But I mean, it's one of the coolest apps actually I've ever used. The utility factor of it is universal. No matter who you are, you get lost and you need to find your way. You're mobile and you need to find something. And it's in We're very bad about asking for help. So this is now your tool to be able to find your way.
All right, other questions? All right, I've got one. Who do you think will be the leader in this space in 3 years, other than your own company?
Which space?
Social networking, mobile social networking. Will it be, okay, I'll help you out here. Is it going to be MySpace Mobile, or is it going to be Friendster, or is it going to be, just look down the future a few years.
I think this space changes so quickly, and we target generally ADHD generation, that what's hot today could be totally gone in 6 months, and new things pop up all the time. And I think that's part of what's so exciting and dynamic about this business, is every day it's changing. I don't know if MySpace will be, it's like Yahoo is considered big media today. Maybe MySpace will be considered that 3 to 5 years from now, won't be hip and cool, and they'll sort of have lost their edge. There's no way to know. I mean, will YouTube still be what it is a year from now? Who knows?
Well, and my question is it going to become more of a feature incorporated in a lot of applications?
Yeah,
For
good point.
instance, any kind of content that's provided, there's always possibilities to incorporate social networking opportunities, for those niche. And so it'll be interesting to see if there'll be a big player, or if it'll become more common use among, a lot of content and applications in general.
I think carriers have a good shot at it, because if you look at where you're going right now, specifically Alltel and T-Mobile, what they've done with the My Circle and My Faves or My Five, you're taking that experience, which currently in this generation will be applications or websites, and taking it down into the PIM level, where it's really core communication and functionality. And when you start looking at applications like UI1, Flash, or some of the handset OEMs are sticking web servers on handsets now, so you can just change the CSS. You start enabling people to have mass customization. I can have, during the day, my professional phone menu that hooks in all my things. At night, I could have my clubber menu that does all my things, and on the weekend, my football team. So I think that kind of customization, taking social networking, I don't think is anything other than a communication construct. And so being able to put those enabling tools into handsets and in the hands of consumers, and being able to link them together and do things, I think they're the best position for it. I don't know that they'll do it, but I think they're the ones set up most for it. People like Helio, frankly.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Can you talk about any use case scenarios that will involve, I don't know, pieces that we haven't talked about? Porn. Oh, okay. You want to go down there? We're in that capital, right?
No, seriously, the two biggest moneymakers.
Seriously, porn.
No, seriously.
I'm surprised no one's asked it yet.
The two biggest moneymakers are porn and games. So it's going to be really interesting to look at how those games get monetized and how those games adapt for the individual handsets. And as far as this 3 to 5 years business, like, we don't even know what humans are going to look like in 5 years, let alone handsets. So I think that we're going to keep. I think we should keep an eye on how the games are developed and how they get monetized.
Yeah, somebody asked about the TV stuff, the content stuff. I mean, the carriers want to run networks. They have to get FCC licensing to to use channel 57, which Qualcomm owns across the planet. And so it starts getting into ideas of community decency and community standards and obscenity laws and hate crimes and stuff like that. And as much as intellectual property laws and copyright is sort of front of mind today with like the Google lawsuit, content standards is a big deal. And so what's here in LA or San Francisco maybe isn't okay in Overland Park, Kansas. And so I think that's something that a lot of people may, it's cool to have your 100 million Estonian friends on MySpace, but a carrier may not have a sense of humor when you're talking about, nudity and things like that. And then very specifically, it's very top of mind with carriers.
I can vouch for that. Right, yeah. We actually have, putting UGC content on a handset, we actually have a secondary level of moderation. So we have the primary Rever video patrol process. Everything goes through a secondary human screening process to meet the content standard guidelines from Verizon Wireless. The good news is, if you can pass those, every carrier in the world will work with you.
Now, is that your staff that does that?
Pretty much. We have outsourced one piece of it, but all of the video patrol process happens inside of Rever.
We look at every photo too.
Yeah.
And Verizon is our first carrier.
Yeah, and Verizon actually has someone who does the same thing for every piece that goes on the deck.
And what's the standard? What's the yardstick?
Well, you can be topless at the beach, but not on a bed in a room. And I mean, it's it's.
I mean, is
it's
it that
fairly
Pretty
specific?
convoluted.
Oh, all
Yeah.
sounds worse.
I mean, it's
I
all
didn't
over
even
the
know
board,
you
right?
could be topless on the beach.
Oh, male topless.
I mean, you know, listen, it's the
okay.
same stuff. If you think about your programming for primetime broadcast television, it's not much different than that
Okay.
in terms of language, nudity, no promotion of hate speech, no illegal activity, no crime. You know, when you're dealing with edgy young producers who, you know, they're smoking
Hormones.
pot in a clip and it looks great, and you're like, okay, fade to black. You know, there's stuff you have to retool and tweak to make it work on a mobile deck. And, you know, again, they don't want to be subject to the FCC coming in and telling them how to run content, so they're taking a conservative position. And, you know, I have a 16-year-old, and I don't want her seeing adult content on a handset.
Go ahead, Bob.
I think sometime in I don't know what the time frame is going to be, but was on a panel and we had to come up with a key turning point in the mobile industry. And one of the concepts that was identified was age verification. Because once you have age verification, you can sell more adult content, which means you can develop better pricing models, or better pricing models will develop. A lot of things follow the ability to address the demand for porn, that infrastructure then serves the broader universe of content. And so I think when we get past age verification, we'll have an accelerated infrastructure.
Identity management in general is actually a big thing technologically that's holding back a lot of these initiatives right now.
All right, we had a question in the back.
That wasn't true in Canada. They
Well-
have age verification, and it's not true. They launched pornography, and they pulled it off.
They pulled it off.
Yeah.
Right.
And in Australia, too, I think.
Church in Quebec said it was just no go, and the carrier pulled it like that.
Yeah.
I mean, and you think Verizon's any different? All
Nope.
It's all off deck, you know.
I think age
Yeah.
verification is going to be great for doing monetization of certain service levels, but it's not going to promote porn in the next 4 years.
No, I agree. I think porn's going to go off deck.
Yeah.
Oh, it has to.
I'm kind of assuming
Messaging, it'll be premium,
Yeah.
some sort of premium trigger. But I think to the extent that it's brought to the carrier's attention, they're going to turn it off. I mean, if they, you know, Bobby's selling porn, we now block his IP and we disable his aggregator deals, and sorry.
And I should show my cards that I'm pretty off-deck focused, so that's what I'm...
Personally or professionally?
Does there have to be a difference, really?
Yeah.
Any other questions? Yeah, right here.
Yes, the .mobi extension, is it becoming more relevant?
Good question.
I'll-
Well, that was an answer.
Well, we register
Yeah.
ours. I mean, you know, what's even more, the one that really kills me is shortcodes, right? I mean, you want a shortcode, which we really, hopefully, would help do some marketing, and you pay $1,000 a month for that. You know, it's not squatting on domains. I mean, that's some real cost. So, .mobi is another way to take money from us. We registered all our .mobi domains, and nobody goes to them. It's not. We don't see it in what we do in the U.S.
I think you have to hit, I'm not sure how many keys you have to enter MOBI, but if you're typing in URLs, it's cumbersome, and I think that's representative of that it's missing the whole mark of the point. I'm not a fan of .mobi.
I just think a shortcode should cost the same thing as a URL for a year, but I've been a big proponent of that for a long time.
Okay. Anyone else?
Could you just explain about the shortcode? A lot of people really don't understand about shortcodes.
A good question.
It's like
who wants to take a
Mike
shortcut?
probably, but it's, you know, it's routing.
The question is, explain what a shortcode is, and then your
Mike, do you
question
wanna-
is, and why they're so expensive.
It's a routing mechanism where you can send something to a specific number, and then you route that inside the network. So it could be, you know, send, subscribe to 52341, and then you then go through your work and send them the file or whatever the case may be. So it's a way to get around SMTP gateways. I don't know why it's so expensive, though.
It always has been since the CTIA started it. It was sort of
It's just like a regular
Money
phone
maker.
number in that you send and receive text messages from it, except for it's short, so it's more memorable, but also more controlled and expensive.
So when you watch Deal or No Deal, for example, and they ask you, you know, grab your cell phone and for 99 cents you can guess which case the $10,000 is in and win it, they ask you to text to 514 15. So it's a universal short code that goes across all the major carriers, so you don't have to customize a phone number for each carrier.
And going the other way, I mean, it's gonna play a big deal in the monetization of the content, as was discussed earlier.
Right.
Being able to do one-off buys of games or ringtones or whatever.
Yeah, the good news about the high price, though, is if you have your short code for your company, whatever it is, probably is available for you, because no one, I think there's like 500 to 600 short codes that are used in the U.S., and the carriers own digit short codes. 4 digits are pretty hard to get. 5 and 6 are easy. Pretty much anything you think of, you can get.
So get in early, right?
And $1,000 a month.
All right. Any
What a
other
rip-off.
final question? All right, I think that's it. Let's give the panel a good hand. Thank you very much.
Hey, yes, thank you for sharing this stuff.
Actually learned a lot.
For me, here, so, great, yeah, because, the thing is like.
We're going to be starting our next session, so if I could ask the speakers to just move off to the side kindly, and you can meet them off to the side. We're going to bring up our next panel and start the next session.